In the Impact segment tonight, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has done it again, hurling wild accusations about Mitt Romney not paying taxes. After telling reporters that Romney hadn't paid taxes in 10 years, Reid then doubled down and made the same claim on the Senate floor yesterday with absolutely no substantiation. Now even lefties like Jon Stewart are mocking Harry Reid. They say he's gone too far.
An anonymous and unnamed Bain investor had told the senator that he knew Mitt Romney had not paid taxes for 10 years.
The word's out that he hasn't paid any taxes for 10 years.
You don't get to say the word is out, as though that's evidence of the truth of something when you're the one who put out the word.
About this. So, is this Harry Reid political strategy working?
Well, I don't think it's working, and quite frankly, I think it's disgraceful because he knows that under the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 6, Clause 1, he's protected from being sued or being arrested for saying anything that's untrue on the Senate floor, and that's why he chose to say it on the Senate floor. And I think this is an abuse of the speech and debate clause, and quite frankly, a disgrace to the dignity of America that he would do something like this.
Is this a part of a large-scale Obama conspiracy, if you will, to somehow distract everybody from what's going on with the economy, everything else, and talk about taxes and Mitt Romney?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a diversion tactic. And I have no doubt that Harry Reid's the man they threw out there to be the fall guy and that it's a collusion. And yes, I do definitely. I believe that.
I have to say, because as I said, Jon Stewart and others on the left are saying, you know what? He's the Senate Majority Leader. He's a serious political figure in our country, and for him to be making unsubstantiated allegations, is that below the belt?
I think Harry Reid is the one. I think Harry Reid is the one who's bringing down America, quite frankly, because do you know 30 House bills have been passed, 30 that Reid won't even bring up for a vote.
Well, an historic vote in the U.S. House today as members of Congress voted to approve a bill that would allow the Federal Reserve to be audited. This audit of the Fed bill has been a longtime passion of outgoing Texas Congressman Ron Paul. The bill now moves on to the Senate, but could it be dead on arrival? Ben has some answers in tonight's Reality Check.
H.R. 459, a bill to audit the Fed, has been attempted in just about every session of Congress over the past decade. Yesterday, though, it was overwhelmingly approved by a vote of 327 for, 98 against. Audit the Fed would allow the U.S. Congress to audit the lending activities and the printing of money conducted by the Federal Reserve. Do you know how much money the Fed is printing? Why, during the 2008 financial crisis, did the Federal Reserve refuse to give money to investment bank Lehman Brothers before their collapse, but then after they collapsed made a $138 billion loan? Why? Why does the Fed print American money and then lend it to foreign banks? During the height of the 2008 crisis, 70% of bailout money went to banks overseas. Why is that? How much of our own debt is the Fed buying up? There are a lot of questions that surround the Federal Reserve, but many Americans may not realize this. But right now, no one, not even the president himself, can look at the Federal Reserve's books. It's a private institution that has the single greatest power over our economy. You see, no one actually knows where the Fed's directives come from. The Fed operates independently of the U.S. government. Its decisions do not have to be approved by the president or any branch of government. But the Fed still sets all interest rates, decides how much money to print, buys our debt, and creates inflation, all of it without any oversight from elected leaders. Thus, Audit the Fed, a bill that says the Fed must have some level of transparency and accountability for the decisions it's making. So now that Audit the Fed has passed the House, the bill will move on to the Senate, which should mean it has a good chance of passing. Why? Because Congressman Ron Paul isn't the only longtime lawmaker who has advocated auditing the Fed. This is video of Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid on January 23rd, 1995. Listen.
I have sponsored legislation that would call for an audit of the Federal Reserve System. I offer that amendment every year. Every year, the legislation gets nowhere. I think it would be interesting to know about the Federal Reserve. I think we should audit the Federal Reserve. It's taxpayers' money that's being used there, but we don't do that. Even though there is no entity in the world that controls our lives more than the Federal Reserve System.
And that again was Senator Reid in 1995, the same Harry Reid who is now the Senate Majority Leader. Getting a vote on Audit the Fed should be a slam dunk, right? Well, apparently not. The Senate Majority Leader has said that he will not put it up for an up or down vote, making it dead on arrival. Well, can he do that? He can. In the U.S. Senate, legislation is placed on the legislative calendar. Scheduling of that calendar is the job of the Majority Leader. So why would Senator Harry Reid, who in 1995, as you just saw, said that every year he pushes for an audit of the Federal Reserve System, now say no? Again, the clip we showed you was in 1995. It was made 17 years ago, so maybe he's changed his mind. Then again, maybe not. This is Senator Reid in 2010 while trying to hold on to his Senate seat in Nevada.
I called for a Federal Reserve audit in 1987, So I agree with my opponent on that. There should be a Federal Reserve audit. We haven't gotten it yet. But we've made some progress in that regard.
So what you need to know is what many Americans should want to know. How does the Majority Leader in the Senate argue, in his words, since 1987, that the Federal Reserve should be audited? And then when a bill that he's been asking for 25 years finally heads into his chamber, he says he won't allow it to get an up or down vote.
If my Republican friends believe that increasing our debt by almost $800 billion today and more than $3 trillion over the last 5 years is the right thing to do, they should be upfront about it. They should explain why they think that more debt is good for our economy. How can the Republican majority in this Congress explain to their constituents that trillions of dollars of new debt is good for our economy? How can they explain that they think it's fair to force our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren to finance this debt through higher taxes? That's what it'll have to be. Why is it right to increase our nation's dependence on foreign creditors? They should explain this. Maybe they can convince the public they're right. I doubt it. Because most Americans know that increasing debt is the last thing we should be doing. After all, I repeat, the baby boomers are about to retire. Under the circumstances, any credible economist would tell you we should be reducing debt, not increasing it. We're being asked to do what shouldn't be asked of us, to increase the debt to almost $9 trillion. I hope everyone walking down to these desks today will understand what they're doing to our country. On this side of the aisle, we know.
I just wanted to ask my friend one more time. We have here a situation where the Senate has voted to table, in effect, the House-passed measure, and the Majority Leader has filled up the tree and filed cloture on his proposal. And as I indicated earlier, every single member of my conference here in the Senate would be happy to move that vote up. As we all know, the markets are waiting to see if we're going to act. It strikes me that it might make sense for all of us on a bipartisan basis to go on and act as rapidly as possible I believe every member of the Senate is pretty well determined how they would vote on cloture on the motion to proceed to my friend's measure. Therefore, I would ask, again, consent that we immediately proceed to a vote on invoking cloture on the Reid amendment.
Is there objection?
I object.
Objection noted.
Happy to have an honest debate about the Bush tax cuts we disagree on, those giving the wealthiest Americans more tax breaks.
Questions?
Reid, when it comes to the Bush tax cuts, now that Congress is divided, why didn't Senate Democrats push through this bill back when you controlled the Senate, the House, and the President?
The tax cuts weren't about to expire then, so that's why we're doing it now.
Foreseen this issue 2 years ago. They expired at the end of 2010.
And that's why they were extended 1 year.
But why didn't they vote when you could have pushed this bill through and had it signed into law?
Next question.